Hello everyone, my name is Brent and today we have Chris recording, but it's been about 2 years I've been living up here now, and I realized I haven't given anybody a proper tour into all the buildings. So today we're gonna look at all the progress that's been going on up here in the last 2 years, and we're gonna go into all the buildings, all the rooms, a view of Cerro Gordo that pretty much nobody has seen except for the people that come up in person. And so with that, it's very windy out here, so we're gonna move in here. And this first building was formerly a mechanics garage, and these days it's a church/movie theater. So Chris, can you speed up my feet so it looks like MTV Cribs? So for anybody that doesn't know, Cerro Gordo was established as a mining town back in 1865. And within a few years, it grew to be the largest producer of silver for the state of California. At its peak, it had nearly 4,000 residents and hundreds of buildings across these hills. And together, the miners pulled almost $500 million of the silver out of the hills. These days, it seems quite peaceful, but 150 years ago, this town was just humming 24/7. There were multiple saloons, brothels, and a mine that operated around the clock. And so as I walk through these buildings, I just try to imagine what they might have been like back in the day. Who was there? What were their dreams? What were their aspirations? And that just helps set the context to all these buildings that remain. When I first came up here about 2 years ago, this place was just purely storage. This was where anything that was unseen or unwanted would go. And it was pretty much floor to ceiling with just junk. And over the last 2 years, with the help of a lot of people, I've kind of turned it into a theater. We actually watched the Super Bowl in here not too long ago. And so if you look, there's these beautiful theater chairs in here now. We have a little projector set up. One of the things that we've been thinking about a lot, and one of the things that we want to do, is maybe create kind of like a film festival. Chris and I have been going back and forth with this idea that we want to invite some teams up, maybe 5 or 6 teams, give them some cameras, give them 48 hours to shoot and cut a video that will premiere here. And then we have an interesting panel of judges to kind of review that and maybe make it an annual thing. Something that people can come to year after year, roll out the red carpet, have some nice beverages. If you are a brand and you want to sponsor such a event, hit me up. It's probably one of my favorite buildings. It's one that I don't show a ton on the videos just because there's not a ton of work going on in here, but it's very peaceful. I think long term, it's right in the center of town, and this will be a big kind of gathering place for a lot of the people. All right, so that's kind of the movie theater church. From here, we're gonna take a trip just a couple hundred feet over that way to the bunkhouse. And the bunkhouse is pretty much where all the volunteers stay. It's also, to me, the most haunted place here, but let's go check it out. If you've watched my videos for a long time, you know that I have a very special relationship with this building. This window here is where I have pretty much my first and only ghost experience here at Cerro Gordo. And 2 years ago, this building had really thick, dark carpet in it. There was really dark blue walls and all these lace curtains. And since then, I've taken a lot of time to rip up all the carpet, refinish the floors, paint the walls white just to try to brighten it up. And these days, this is where all the volunteers stay. So when anybody comes up to help out, they stay in here. And I like it, it's very communal. It feels very, like a community in here. So let's check it out. Come on in. So this is kind of the kitchen area. As you can see, we always have a lot of water here. We also have LMNT, shout out LMNT. They always hook up the town with electrolytes. And I've been using this stuff for like 2 years. And if you go to lmnt.com, so lmnt.com/Brent, they actually will give you a free pack of this stuff. This is something that I truly do have in all the houses, as you'll see in this tour. And so I think you guys will like it. But this is the kitchen. It's stocked up. It's pretty much where everybody meets in the morning. If it's cold, this heats up the house pretty good. This is one of the original wood burning stoves. And then how it works is you open up this, you throw in wood there, close it up. You can kind of move around the burners like so. But down here, there's 6 rooms. They're all set up decently good. If you're looking here, we've set up a few of them so that way multiple people can stay. So this is like a decent one if you and a friend want to come up and stay for a little bit. I like this building a lot. I think long term, it'll be a great place for kind of groups to rent out. Right now, it's just, there's no charge for the volunteers. Obviously, they come and they help out and they get to stay here. We try to cook meals at night and all that type of things. think with that, we'll take a little wander and we're gonna go up to the general store, which again, when I first moved here was kind of a mess, but these days it's the museum. Anything that I find around the property or anybody else finds, we throw in there. On our tour, it wouldn't be a tour of Cerro Gordo without Scotty Rhodes. Scotty's been living up here for a while now. We are going to go into your house.
Oh, cool, yeah.
But right now we're gonna go to the general store first and then go over to my cabin and then the Gordon.
Nice.
But yeah, we're gonna take a little walk. We're up here on this windy day at the original general store. So this store was owned by Victor Beaudry back in the day. And originally in the front was a general store with provisions like canned goods and stuff like that. And then back was a butcher shop. And so for the audio's sake, we're gonna go inside and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. And so like I said, this building has changed quite a bit since I first got here. It had things like, you know, New Year's decorations from 2002 and just all sorts of stuff that needed to get sorted through. There are some things that I found like, you know, different items like this hammer, things like this. A lot of the things that you've seen in a lot of the videos if you've watched over the last 2 years. And if you're ever curious, step back a little bit. This is the typical go-to spot that I film all of the different talks at. So usually I'm sitting here talking about whatever adventure has happened that day. We have a guest book. We get quite a few visitors these days, which I love. And so if you look, you know, even in the last few days, we've had quite a few different names. Back here used to be the butcher shop. These days it's just kind of another piece of the museum. Over here is a lot of the kind of dynamite boxes that I found. This came from the 700-foot level down in the Union Mine. This one came when Dave Sparks was here back in the day, which is a lot of fun. This one I brought up maybe 2 weeks ago. This is a place that is the main area where people come when they visit the town. So it means a lot to me. And each of these items has its own story that I love telling people when they come. So Cerro Gordo had two main eras. It had a silver and lead era and then a zinc era. The silver and lead era started around 1865 with Pablo Flores discovering the town. And then a guy named Mortimer Belshaw came up and really invested a lot of money and made this town into a boom town. He partnered with Victor Beaudry, the guy who owned this store. And the two of them made Cerro Gordo into the biggest silver mine in California at the time. And so in 1910, a guy named L.D. Gordon came up here and he realized while everybody was looking for the silver and lead, nobody was paying attention to the zinc. And so he started mining zinc here and he's the one that put in the aerial tramway that goes from here all the way down to Keeler. And he brought back another boom. Both Belshaw and Gordon built private residences here. And so now I think it's time that we go to the two former founders' houses. We're gonna start with the Gordon house. It's probably the nicest house here at Cerro Gordo. The story with the Gordon, I will tell you once we get over there. So this is the Gordon house, and the story goes with this is that in 1910, L.D. Gordon came up here, discovered zinc, started mining it again, but he had a family, you know, he had a wife and kids, so he wanted to convince his wife to move up here to Cerro Gordo. So he built the most fancy house he could possibly build in 1910 in hopes that his wife would want to come move up here and stay here. So he built the house, and in the end, the wife didn't want to come and stay here anyways, but the house remains, so we're gonna come check it out. So welcome inside the Gordon house. First we go into the kitchen, and this is where most of the time I'll cook breakfast. Even though I'm living in a different house, it doesn't have a reliable stove. So this is kind of the layout. You know, you can see the original cast iron stove that they have, and they've obviously since put in this propane stove that we get to use most often. And a lot of nights, if we don't congregate down in the bunkhouse, a lot of the volunteers will stay here. You know, we'll all kind of swap stories, hang out. It's got this cool little breakfast nook over here. In here, this is the main living room area. There's been a lot of great nights here. You know, a lot of different stories have been swapped around this fire. There's a pool table that is definitely not level, but this might be my favorite room at Cerro Gordo, both because of the way it looks. I love the ceiling, but also just kind of the memories I've had here. You know, there's been some of my favorite conversations and interactions and evenings sitting around here, just interacting with everybody that comes to visit the town. And the house in total is 4 bedrooms. There's 2 downstairs, there's 2 upstairs. So we'll check out these 2 downstairs first, and then we'll go up. This is one of the bedrooms. Hard to beat that view. You know, In the morning when the sun is rising, there's a purple hue that goes over the mountain range there. And at night when the sun sets, it sets right over those mountain ranges. And so I always loved the view out of this room. You know, when I first came up here, I would stay in this room quite a bit just for that sunrise effect. It has no outlets, which is a little bit difficult when I started making more YouTube videos, but that's manageable. We'll figure out a solution. Over here is kind of the back room. This is another room that just has great views. For a long time when I was working on the videos, I would have a desk right here, and this would be the view out that I would be looking out while editing and working on a lot of the different videos for Cerro Gordo. And so the only other thing to see downstairs is a bathroom. It's the one working restroom right now at Cerro Gordo, which is pretty exciting. This is it, you know, pretty small, pretty basic, but we keep a little heater in here during the winter so the pipes don't freeze. But that is something that definitely you could not do 2 years ago. So that's a huge improvement as far as I'm concerned. You know, if you go from 0 running water to even 1 working sink, that's pretty awesome. Upstairs, there's 2 more rooms. And up there, there's also one of my favorite views from Cerro Gordo. This is upstairs. Like I said, there's 2 rooms in the upstairs of the Gordon house. If we come over here, this is the larger of the 2 rooms. Like I said, it's pretty big. It's got a view of the mine, of the cook's house next door. This is the other room upstairs. You know, this one is pretty cool too. It's got a nice view of the whole town. It's keeping on the theme of former owners. We're gonna go from here over to the Belshaw House, which is where I currently live. And we'll check out where I currently work and all that type of stuff. This is it. This is the Belshaw House. This is where I spend my days. I work pretty much on this table these days. I switched over from the Gordon to here. As far as Belshaw goes, that's him. That's Mr. Mortimer Belshaw himself. It's pretty basic. This is kind of the area where I, you know, contemplate life in the evenings, watching the fire go. This is my room over here. Spartan, I like to keep it small so it's easy to keep warm. I have my little one heater here. I'm reading a book right now called Silver Stampede. And this book is all about Panamint City, which I just did a video about. If you're interested in more hikes around Death Valley, this is a great book too. It goes over a lot of the great hikes in this area. But yeah, this is my little room. Nothing too huge, but easy to keep warm in the winter time. More LMNT, I wasn't kidding. We do have the LMNT everywhere. I take couple of them a day just to keep hydrated. Probably take one after this. Over here is the kitchen, nothing too fancy. There's not running water in this house yet right now, so I kind of gotta do one of these to get any dishes done, which is usually why I go to the Gordon, to be honest, to cook anything. But I can make some tea in the morning and different things like that. You know, in Belshaw back in the day, he was so successful that he even built a house for his cook, which was right behind him. And so I think with this, we're gonna wander over to the cook's house and take a look at where Scotty lives these days. All right, so back in the day, this cabin was Belshaw's cook's. So, you know, he had a private chef, and so his chef lived here. These days this is where Scotty lives. We'll knock, make sure he's okay to go inside. Scotty? Come on in. So this is Scotty's humble abode. That's his cat. This cabin is kind of small. It's nice for the wintertime too. There's just like the bed area, you know, a basic little living room area that Scotty has set up for his computer and everything. There's a little kitchen back here. There's a little storage back here. From here, we're gonna go to the hunter's cabin. And the hunter's cabin is named after Mr. Hunter, who was a really big personality in this area. It's where Robert, the former caretaker, used to live. It's where Chris is staying right now. And it's a pretty cool cabin too that I don't think we've ever shown on camera before. So we'll go down there and kind of round out these private residences. This is where the longtime caretaker Robert lived back in the day. These days, it's a pretty basic setup, you know. Upstairs is what you see here. Fridge, little kitchen. There's a bedroom over there. There's a downstairs actually as well. And I think, you know, during the evenings anyways, the sunset out of this back view is pretty awesome. And so that's the Hunter cabin. Fun fact about Hunter, him, Belshaw, and a few others were actually the ones that correctly identified what Mount Whitney was. Previously, everybody thought that it was Mount Langley was the tallest peak, and they led an expedition that ended up finding out that no, Mount Whitney is actually Mount Whitney. So that's a little fun fact about Hunter and Belshaw and the Cerro Gordo connection to Mount Whitney. And so with that, let's make our way back into the center of town and keep checking things out. And of course, no tour would be a tour without the animals. The animals are doing good, starting to get a little bit warmer, and I am happy to announce that we have 2 new additions to the goat family, Spaghetti and Meatball. Meatball was named because of the brown patch over her eye. So Beretta had 2 beautiful little babies. Hello, Spaghetti. Hello, Beretta. And that's Meatball over there. If you want to see them, this is Meatball. She's quite social. Come here. You got little horns growing in. She's feeding, so we're gonna put her down. We got Spaghetti right next to her. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Yes, you're such a good goat. This is Elon, the main goat of the pack. Tofu, Beretta. The alpacas are over there, but we hope to get chickens soon. And the chicken coop is set up already. And so we have that going on. And if you want to see more animal footage, I have plenty on my channel. So now we're kind of up on the hillside above the town. This is an area where a lot of the miners used to live. So miners would pitch a tent up here, build little shacks, all those types of things. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that over the past year or so, myself and a bunch of volunteers have been working on this cabin. And this cabin isn't necessarily to stay in, it's more of just a museum piece. And the long-term goal is to create a space where people can come in and maybe get a sense of what these cabins might have been like back in the day, you know? So a little bit of a museum. That we have some pieces out here that we're putting in. Pretty much all this wood that you see in here is recycled. It's found around the property. This wood that we used for the back paneling and the roof came from Darwin, which is another mine not too far from here. This stove came from Cerro Gordo. All this wood was recovered on the property here. You know, this piece is really cool because as we were sourcing it, there's actually a bullet lodged into the wood. So obviously we had to keep the bullet in there. Cerro Gordo was a very lively place back in the day. So the idea now is to move in some more museum pieces, you know, set up a bed, some other artifacts in here. And so when people come and take a tour of the town, if you were to come up and walk around, you'd be able to come up here and get a better sense of what these cabins could have been like back in the day. And so with that, we're gonna take a trip back into the main town and we're gonna look at the assay office. So the assay office is where they would have tested the quality of the silver coming out of the mountain. So we're gonna take a peek inside, show you some of the old equipment. And I've learned quite a bit about assaying in the last year. You know, I actually went through the process myself. The basic premise of assaying was trying to determine the quality of the silver or the amount of silver in any ore. So what they would do is they would take a representative sample. So let's say they would take about 30 grams of galena. They'd crunch it up. That galena would go into a crucible, one of these. You would add in flux, which is either soda ash or iron or things like that. And flux is gonna take anything out of the galena that isn't lead or silver. So there's sulfur in there, there's silica, there's things you wanna bring out. So you heat that up, then you would pour it into a cone mold. So basically something like that looks like a V. And the heavy metals will settle to the bottom. So lead and silver will be at the bottom of that. And anything else, the sulfur, the silica, everything else will be in that flux that you added in, that'll turn into slag. And slag is the waste product. Slag is what you're gonna break off and throw away. From there, you'll take that tiny bit of lead and silver and you'll put it into one of these, which is a cupel. And a cupel is made out of bone ash. And so what a cupel does, it allows any non-precious metal to oxidize, meaning the lead is gonna absorb into this cupel and leaving behind just a tiny bead of silver. And so at the end, what the assayer would do is he would measure how much the tiny bead of silver weighs, and then depend that on how many grams of the galena he started with. So let's say you started with 30 grams of galena and you ended up with 2 grams of silver. You know, you extrapolate that out and you would say per ton, you know, your galena is worth $300 or whatever. So basically this was a place where a lot of miners' dreams came to live or die, which is funny because the proximity to the building next to us, which is Lola's Palace of Pleasure, which is one of the original brothels here in town. So from here, we'll just kind of wander next door and take a look at that.
Lola Travis was one of the main kind of entrepreneurs in the town back in the day. She ended up owning land, not just here at Cerro Gordo, but down in Lone Pine and Darwin and Panamint City and all over the place. And back in the West, there was a variety of different types of brothels. You know, there was the ones that you see in things like Westworld, where you walk in and there's a bar and there's a lot of socializing going on, all the way down to things that they called cribs. So this would have been something like a crib. And a crib is basically, as you can see, just individual bedrooms. There's no real room for small talk. There's no real room for much but getting down to business. And so this, when I came here 2 years ago, was just this one crib. These two cribs have been recreations. And so inside, you know, this would have been the exact space. And if you come on over here, we have our kind of an Instagram wall, if you will. This was put together by a guy named Matt P, who came up here. So shout out Matt. This is a lot of the different pieces of dynamite boxes that we couldn't use otherwise. You have all the different brands. You have Giant, you have Hercules, and you have Atlas. Speaking of dynamite, I think the next trip that we're gonna take is up to the Hoist House, and the Hoist is the main Union mine here. And right next to the Hoist House is the old dynamite vault. And this is something I've never shown on any of the videos previously. And this is something that we're doing a really cool project in right now, and we're actually working on it today. So I'm gonna give you guys more of a sneak peek of a project that I have going on. This is the Hoist House. This holds the Union mine. And the Union mine is the largest mine here at Cerro Gordo. It's a mine shaft that goes 900 feet straight down with levels every 200 feet or so. And this entire building is constructed all to service the hoist. You know, the cage that lowers you slowly down into the mine. And you know, this is the original kind of mine here at Cerro Gordo, and the hoist still works. So we're gonna go inside, show you guys what the Hoist House looks like, talk about a couple of the projects, maybe some of the adventures I've gone over the last year, and give you guys a little peek in here. So this is it. This is the Union mine. This is the shaft that goes 900 feet straight down. And this cage right here, you know, when I made the original tour of this town, we weren't really using this, but now I go down this mine maybe once a week even. It's still a little bit, you know, scary each time you go down, because you have to think that this cage right below me is a 900-foot hole, and this is being supported by this cable above me. And this cable above me goes up and then over to the spool over here, and that's how you let people down in the mine. So back in the 1860s, the hoist would have been powered by steam. So the original hoist sat here. You know, they didn't get power here at Cerro Gordo till about 1916. These days, when we operate it, someone sits right here, and we've outfitted it since with this hydraulic system to make it a little bit safer. But the guy that's sitting here is watching that dial up there, and that kind of shows the different levels of the mine. And so what the guy sitting here is doing is he's looking at that to see about where they are, and he's keeping his eyes on the rope, because you don't want any slack in this cable, because that means that the cage got stuck. And if the cage got stuck and there's slack and then the cage gets free, it could drop very dramatically. When we operate, it's a pretty serious situation. You know, there's usually a guy here, there's somebody by the hole, and there's somebody in between, all with radios, kind of communicating with each other. And so it's something that we don't take lightly when we do go down there, but it's a pretty cool experience, you know, thinking that this thing still works, you know, 100 and something years later. The only way into the Union mine, the largest mine here, is with that hole over there. And so it gets quite a bit of action. Next, we're gonna take a trek next door to here to a building that I haven't shown before. We're not gonna take a full tour because that's coming in an upcoming video, but we're gonna give a glimpse of the outside, the dynamite vault. And that's where back in the day they would have kept some of the powder, you know, powder magazine, if you'd rather call it that. These days, there's no dynamite, but there is a cool room that I've been looking to transform into something else. And so we'll take a peek over there and see what that's all about. All right, so now we're just over from the hoist, and this is a newly created path that we created with the help of a lot of volunteers, and we are headed towards what once held all of the dynamite for the Union mine. I don't want to give away too much because it's still under construction, but I will say this. I will say that all of the wood that is being used in there came from the Union mine, and when this wood came out, it all kind of looked like this, and now if you look, it's all just looking beautiful. This room is transforming into one of my favorite rooms here at Cerro Gordo. So I'm excited to show you guys everything that's going on there in maybe next week's video. So now we're on the backside and we are to what I previously called the writer's cabin. You know, when I came here to Cerro Gordo, this is pretty much the first project I worked on. I remember being back here in the snow, running power off of the Tacoma, trying to get this deck in. And this deck was the first thing I did here when I came in March 2020. Since then, this cabin's got quite a bit of upgrades. You know, it's looking pretty good these days. So come on in. You come in, you know, it's pretty basic. It's got the mattress over here, you know, set up a couple artifacts over on the wall. You know, when this first started, there was pretty much nothing in here. So that ceiling went in. And this used to be kind of come in over here. We raised that up. So it's looking a lot different. I remember sitting here at this table 2 years ago, and then a year ago at my kind of year anniversary, sitting here and writing pretty much the whole day and just looking out the window thinking about, you know, what had happened for the last year. And so now to think I'm 2 years and a month or two in, it's pretty crazy. This cabin definitely has a special place in my heart. You know, it's one of the first ones that I worked on after getting here. I think one day I'd love to build my cabin to stay in over on this side of the mountain. I think the views into Death Valley are just stunning. And you know, as the ghost town gets too busy, you'll need a hideaway of the hideaway. And I think this will be the one here. But we also have a little outhouse situation going on over here. So we'll leave this. If you stay in the writer's cabin, this would be your place to be. You know, got the classic shower that you dump some water in, put in the sun, let it heat up a little bit. Over here is the restroom, you know. Can't beat the views out of this outhouse, you know. That's pretty much the tour these days, you know. A lot has changed, some would say the same. And so over the last 2 years, you know, Cerro Gordo has become not just my home, my workplace, but kind of my life's work. And so I'm excited to keep doing these tours maybe once a year, you know, keep everyone giving an update. You know, obviously there'll be videos in between as we're working on projects, but that is what Cerro Gordo is looking like as of spring 2022. And so check back in next year and we'll do something. But as always, thank you guys so much for checking out these videos. You know, this place is coming to life thanks to you guys. And I think that's evident in the projects that have happened here over the last 2 years and the projects that are gonna happen over the next 2. So thank you guys so much. I hope all you guys get to come and see this in person. And until then, I hope you enjoyed this brief tour and I will see you all next time here on YouTube.